My name is Clara Whitman. I'm 33 years old. And I didn't realize my engagement was already unraveling until my fiancé said it out loud, in front of a stranger, with frosting on his fork. The morning started like most of our mornings had for the last year. Quiet, efficient, comfortable. I brewed coffee while he scrolled through emails at the kitchen island, his jaw tight in that way it always was when he was thinking about work, or his father. Cake tasting at 4, I reminded him, slipping on my blazer. I know, he said, distracted. I'll meet you there. We'd been engaged for 18 months, long enough that the excitement had softened into logistics, venues, deposits, guest lists, timelines. I worked as a software architect, 10 years in, stable income, respected in my field. I didn't build skyscrapers. I built systems that kept companies alive. Invisible work, quiet work, work you only noticed when it failed. My fiancé, Daniel, came from a different world. His father had built a regional construction empire from nothing, the kind of man people pointed at and said, "That's success. Concrete, steel, buildings with his name etched into plaques." I'd learned early that Daniel measured himself against that legacy. What I didn't realize, not fully, was that he was measuring me against it too. The bakery smelled like sugar and citrus when I arrived. The consultant was cheerful, efficient, already lining up samples on white plates. Daniel arrived 5 minutes late, kissed my cheek, sat down. Everything felt normal, until it didn't. We were on the third cake, lemon raspberry, when Daniel set his fork down and sighed. Not a quiet sigh, a performance. The consultant froze, smile hovering. "Everything okay?" she asked. Daniel smiled thinly. "Yeah, it's just..." He glanced at me. "I wish you were more like my father," he said casually. "At least he built something." The room went silent. I felt it, that precise moment when something breaks cleanly instead of loudly. I set my fork down, wiped my mouth, took a slow breath. "I know," I said. Daniel blinked. "You know what?" "I know that's what you wish," I said calmly. "You've been saying it for weeks." The consultant suddenly found her notes very interesting. I stood, picked up my bag. "We're done here," I said. "Thank you for your time." Daniel followed me into the parking lot, confused and irritated. "You're being dramatic." "No," I said, "I'm being observant." And for the first time, I understood something clearly. This wasn't about cake. It never had been. I drove home with my hands steady on the wheel and my heartbeat doing something strange. Too calm, like my body had decided panic would be a waste of energy. Daniel didn't call. That alone told me more than any apology could have. If it had been an accident, if his words had slipped out in a moment of stress, he would have chased me down the street, banging on my window, begging me to come back inside the bakery and pretend we were fine. But he didn't. He let me leave like I was a door he could close later. The apartment felt different when I walked in. Not emptier. More honest. Like the walls had been listening to everything I'd swallowed for months and were finally allowed to exhale. I kicked off my shoes, set my bag on the counter, and stood in the kitchen, staring at the small frame photo we kept near the coffee machine. Us on the night he proposed, my hands covering my mouth, his grin wide, the ring sparkling like a promise. I remembered how sure I'd felt then, how grateful, how safe. And now all I could think was, how long has he been disappointed in me? Because it hadn't started at the cake tasting. That was just the first time he'd said it in front of someone who wasn't obligated to pretend it was normal. The first comparisons had sounded almost affectionate. A story told over dinner. A harmless little fun fact about his father. "Dad bought Mom's ring in cash," Daniel had said one night, swirling wine like he was narrating a documentary. 24 years old, no loans, no financing, just walked in and paid. I'd smiled. "That's impressive." And I'd meant it. But then Daniel had leaned back and added, almost as an afterthought, "He always said debt makes you weak." At the time, I'd laughed, because what else do you do with a comment like that? I wasn't drowning in debt. I was careful, responsible. I'd built my credit the hard way. I'd saved. I'd put away money every month, even when it meant skipping vacations and saying no to impulse purchases. But Daniel's father didn't care about careful. He cared about tangible. Concrete proof. A beam you could touch. A wall you could point at. 2 weeks ago, we'd gone to his parents' house for Sunday dinner. His parents lived in a house that didn't feel like a house so much as a private resort. Stone columns, a circular driveway, and a backyard that looked landscaped by someone who had never sweated a day in their life. Daniel's father, Grant Keller, had taken me out back, like he was giving me a tour of a kingdom. He showed me his workshop first. It wasn't a hobby shop, it was an industrial space with polished tools hanging like trophies. Then he pointed to a new addition on the side of the house, wood beams exposed, fresh varnish glowing in the sunset. "Built that myself," Grant said, running his hand along the beam like it was a pet. "Contractors wanted 50 grand. I did it for 15 in materials." I nodded, genuinely impressed. "That's amazing. I wouldn't even know where to start." Grant chuckled, the sound deep and satisfied. "That's the difference, Ame," he said, "between people who build and people who type." He said type like it tasted sour. Then he glanced at me. No offense. I'd felt my cheeks heat. Not because he'd insulted me, men like him always did, but because Daniel had been standing a few steps away, listening, and Daniel hadn't said a word. He'd just smiled politely, like his father's little jab was charming. That should have been my first real warning. My second warning had come in pieces so small I'd convinced myself they didn't matter. The comment when I worked late. "Must be nice to sit at a computer all day." The comment when I mentioned a bonus. "Yeah, but can you really call that building something?" The comment when we toured our wedding venue. "It's beautiful," Daniel had said, then added quietly, "Dad would have negotiated this price down. He always says people overpay because they don't have a backbone." Every time, I'd told myself Daniel was just stressed. Wedding planning did strange things to people, made them nitpick, made them anxious. But now, standing in our kitchen, the memory of his voice at the cake tasting replaying like a loop. At least he built something. I saw the pattern for what it was. He wasn't anxious. He was ashamed. Ashamed that his fiancée wasn't the kind of woman he could parade in front of his father like a trophy. Ashamed that I wasn't a glossy success story he could brag about over steak dinners. And the worst part wasn't even that his father didn't respect me. It was that Daniel had started agreeing. The wedding fund had been my pride. Not because it was romantic. Because it was practical. Because it proved I could plan, commit, invest in a future. I'd saved $70,000 over the last few years. Quietly. Consistently. No flashy spending, no dramatic sacrifices, just discipline. Daniel had contributed $30,000 early on from his savings, and we'd opened a joint account specifically for wedding expenses. Everything else stayed separate, because we were adults, because we trusted each other, because I believed engagement meant we were building something together. 8 months from now, we were supposed to stand in front of everyone we loved and promise forever. Venue booked, photographer secured, guest list finalized, deposits paid. On paper, we were unstoppable. But paper doesn't show what happens when someone looks at you and sees only what you are not. I walked into the living room and sat down slowly, like if I moved too fast, the truth might slip away again. I took out my phone. No messages from Daniel. Not even a "we need to talk." I stared at the silence and realized something that made my stomach tighten. He didn't think he'd done anything wrong. He thought I was overreacting. He thought I'd swallow it like I'd swallowed everything else. The idea of that, of me smoothing it over, forgiving, pretending his words hadn't carved something permanent into me, made my skin crawl. I wasn't angry. Anger would have been easier. I was clear. And clarity is dangerous, because it makes you act. Around 5:30, I heard the door open. Daniel walked in like nothing had happened. He dropped his keys in the bowl, shrugged off his jacket, and glanced at me. "You really walked out," he said. It wasn't an apology. It wasn't concern. It was annoyance, like I'd embarrassed him. I looked at him and felt a strange calm settle even deeper. "I did," I said. Daniel exhaled sharply and went to the fridge, pulling out a bottle of water like he needed something cold to steady himself. "That was unnecessary," he said. "It's cake. It's not that deep." I watched him drink, watched the way he avoided my eyes. "It wasn't about cake," I said quietly. Daniel's jaw tightened. "Here we go." "No," I said. "Here we go. Because you said it out loud today. You didn't even try to soften it." He scoffed. "Clara, I was just making a point." "What point?" I asked. "That you wish I was someone else?" He rolled his eyes like I was exhausting. "You're taking it personally." "It is personal," I said. "You said you wish I was more like your father. You said at least he built something. That means what? That I haven't built anything worth respecting?" Daniel didn't answer fast enough. And that pause was the same hesitation I'd seen in 100 smaller moments. The pause before he said something that sounded polite but was actually a verdict. "I didn't mean it like that," he said finally. I nodded slowly. "But you meant it." Daniel's face hardened. "You're being sensitive." And there it was. The word people use when they want to dismiss your pain without admitting they caused it. I stood up, walked past him, and went down the hallway to our shared office. My laptop was already on the desk. Charging. Waiting. Daniel called after me. "What are you doing now?" I didn't answer. Because if I answered, he might try to talk me out of it. and I didn't want to be talked out of the first sane decision I'd made in months. I sat down, opened my browser, typed in the login for our joint wedding account. The balance loaded. $300. My 70. His 3 remaining after deposits. A number. A symbol. A future we had been pretending was solid. I stared at it and felt something inside me settle like a lock clicking shut. Daniel appeared in the doorway. He watched the screen, then looked at me. Clara, he warned, voice low, like he could sense something shifting. I turned and met his eyes. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't cry. I just said, I'm done investing in a future where I have to audition for your respect. His face tightened. What the hell does that mean? It meant I finally understood that love without respect is just a slow kind of humiliation. And I wasn't going to keep paying for it. Daniel didn't move. He stood in the doorway of the office, arms crossed, watching me like he was trying to decide whether this was a bluff. It wasn't. I clicked into the account details, my fingers steady, my breathing slow. The kind of calm that only comes when a decision has already been made and your body finally catches up. You're being dramatic, Daniel said again, like repetition might make it true. I didn't look at him. I'm being precise. I opened a new savings account in my name only. No joint access, no shared passwords, no assumptions about trust that hadn't already been broken. Daniel laughed, short, sharp. You can't just move money around because you're upset. I'm not upset, I said. I'm adjusting. The word surprised even me. Adjusting. That was exactly what it felt like rebalancing a system after discovering a critical flaw. I typed in the transfer amount. $700. My contribution. The money I'd saved before Daniel ever proposed, before his father ever evaluated me like a failed blueprint. Daniel stepped forward. Clara, stop. I met his eyes then. I'm taking back what I put in, I said calmly. I'm leaving your $3,000 untouched. His mouth fell open slightly. That's not how this works. That's exactly how it works, I replied. It was wedding money. The wedding is now questionable. His face flushed red. You don't get to decide that unilaterally. I didn't decide it, I said. You did. Today, in the bakery. I clicked confirm. The screen blinked, then refreshed. Transfer complete. A confirmation code appeared beneath the transaction. I copied it automatically. Muscle memory from years of handling financial systems. Daniel stared at the screen like he'd just watched a magic trick go wrong. You're insane, he said quietly. I closed the laptop. Maybe, I said, but I'm not confused. I stood, grabbed my phone, and walked past him into the bathroom. Daniel followed, his voice rising. You're seriously doing this over one comment? I turned on the shower, hot as it would go. Steam began to rise, curling into the air, fogging the mirror slowly, deliberately. One comment doesn't come from nowhere, I said over the sound of running water. It comes from months of thinking. The mirror clouded completely. I raised my hand and wrote the confirmation code across the glass with my finger. Large, clear, unmissable. Daniel went quiet. The steam softened the sharpness of the room, but the silence between us sharpened instead. I stepped back and looked at it, not as a threat, as information. Why would you do that? Daniel asked finally, his voice lower now, uneasy. So you don't pretend this is a misunderstanding, I said. So you don't gaslight yourself into thinking this didn't happen. I turned off the shower. The room stayed foggy, the numbers glowing faintly on the mirror like a message that would eventually disappear, but not before it was seen. I'm taking some space, I said, brushing past him. You should too. I went to the bedroom and pulled out a duffel bag. Laptop, charger, a week's worth of clothes, toiletries. Daniel hovered in the doorway, stunned, like someone watching their house burn while insisting it was just smoke. You can't just leave, he said. I can, I replied, and I am. I walked out without another word. The hotel room smelled like industrial cleaner and quiet. I dropped my bag, sat on the edge of the bed, and let the silence settle. For the first time in months, no one was measuring me. No one was comparing me to a man who built houses with his hands and expectations with his ego. I texted Daniel once, taking space to think. You should too. Then I put my phone face down. 2 hours passed. No response. At 9, my phone lit up. One text. This is childish. I stared at it, felt a flicker of something. Hurt, maybe. But it didn't stick. I didn't reply. At 9:07, the call started. Missed call. Missed call. Then texts, coming faster. Where did the money go? Did you seriously empty our wedding account? Call me now. This is theft. My father is going to hear about this. I silenced the phone. Ordered room service. Ate slowly while watching some forgettable show I didn't really see. I felt lighter than I had in months. Around 11, I checked my phone again. The tone had shifted. Okay, I see what you did. Very clever with the mirror. We need to talk about this like adults. You can't just take money we both put in. I'm calling my lawyer tomorrow. That one made me smile. Call your lawyer. I rolled onto my side and went to sleep. Wednesday morning, my phone showed 17 missed calls and 3 voicemails. I listened to the first. Daniel, furious. You need to put that money back right now. Vendors need deposits. You can't just disappear and blow up everything. The second voicemail made my shoulders tense before it even finished loading. A man's voice, older, confident. Grant Keller. Clara, he said. I don't know what kind of stunt you think you're pulling, but this is unacceptable. You don't take money that doesn't belong to you. You don't run when things get hard. Call my daughter back and fix this. My daughter. Not Daniel. That told me everything about how this story was already being told. The third voicemail was Daniel again, crying now. I'm sorry, okay? I'm sorry I said that thing about my father. I didn't mean it. I was stressed. Please come home. Please put the money back. We can work this out. I didn't call back. I texted instead. I took the money I contributed, $70,000. Your $3,000 is still in the account. Check it. The phone rang immediately. I answered. You can't do this, Daniel said, panic bleeding through his anger. I already did. We agreed that was wedding money. We agreed to be partners, I said evenly. Then you told me I wasn't enough. That's not what I meant. That's exactly what you meant, I replied. You've been thinking it for weeks. I just heard it out loud. So what? He snapped. You're calling off the wedding? I'm giving us time to decide if there should be one at all. Silence. If you want to marry me, I continued, marry me as I am. Not as a comparison to your father, not as a project. Me. You're being dramatic. I'm being clear. I paused. The money stays where it is until I decide what to do. You're holding it hostage. No, I said. I'm keeping what's mine. I hung up. At noon, my own mother called. I answered before it could go to voicemail. Her mother called me, my mom said gently. She's very upset. Of course she was. She said you stole the wedding money and disappeared. I took a breath. I didn't steal anything, I said. I took back my contribution after Daniel publicly insulted me. I told her everything. The bakery, the comment, the pattern. My mother was quiet for a long moment. That's not okay, she said finally. What he said. I know. But running away isn't the answer either. I'm not running, I said. I'm evaluating. And the money? It's mine, I said. And it stays with me. She sighed. Don't make permanent decisions while you're emotional. I looked out the hotel window at the city below. I'm not emotional, I said. I'm rational. And that, I realized, was what scared them the most. Thursday afternoon, the hotel lobby smelled like coffee, carpet cleaner, and other people's lives moving forward. I was sitting at a small table near the window, laptop open, pretending to work while actually watching the automatic doors. I didn't know how Daniel had found me. I didn't ask. I just looked up when the doors slid open and saw him walk in. He looked wrecked, red eyes, unshaven. Hair pulled back carelessly instead of styled the way he normally obsessed over. Sweatpants, an old hoodie, the version of him that only appeared when something had gone very wrong. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for him. Then I remembered the cake tasting, the sigh, the words. He spotted me and walked over quickly. We need to talk, he said. I'm listening, I replied, not closing my laptop. Not here. Yes, here, I said calmly. Public places keep things honest. He hesitated, then sat across from me. I'm sorry, he said immediately. What I said was horrible. I didn't mean it. I nodded once. Okay. He blinked. Okay? I heard you, I said. You apologized. That's it? His voice rose slightly. You're not going to say anything? What do you want me to say? I asked. You said you're sorry. That doesn't undo it. It was stress, he insisted. Wedding planning. Pressure. My dad. Stop, I said gently. Don't blame your father for something that came out of your mouth. He swallowed. The problem isn't the comment, I continued. The problem is that you meant it. That's not true. Then answer me honestly, I said, leaning forward slightly. Do you think I'm successful? Daniel hesitated. Just for a second. But that second was loud. I think you're comfortable, he said carefully. Maybe too comfortable. There it was. I felt something inside me go still. Say it again, I said quietly. You're twisting my words. No, I said. I'm finally listening to them. He leaned back, frustrated. I just think you could push yourself more, be more ambitious. And what am I lacking? I asked. Money? Stability? Discipline? That's not what I'm saying. It's exactly what you're saying, I replied. You don't think what I've built is enough. I never said that. You didn't have to. He rubbed his face. You're blowing this out of proportion. I closed my laptop. No, I said. I've been shrinking it for months. Silence stretched between us. Do you know what hurts the most? I asked. Not that you admire your father, that you want me to admire him too, at the expense of myself. That's not fair. It's honest. He leaned forward now, voice cracking. I love you. I held his gaze. You love who you think I should become, I said, not who I am. That's not true. Then tell me, I said, are you proud to introduce me to people, or do you feel like you have to explain me? His mouth opened, closed. That pause told me everything I needed to know. I think you're settling, I said softly, and one day you'd resent me for it. You're ending our engagement over this? He asked, disbelief and fear mixing together. I'm acknowledging reality, I said. You want someone like your father. I will never be that. He's not a ghost, Daniel snapped. He's my dad. He's a standard, I replied, and I don't meet it. He started crying then, actual tears. Please don't do this, he said. I'll change. I'll try harder. I'll stop comparing. I watched him for a long moment. Trying not to disrespect someone isn't the same as respecting them, I said. I stood, slung my bag over my shoulder. I'm staying here a few more days, I said. Then I'm finding my own place. What about the apartment? He asked weakly. You can keep it. The wedding? Cancel it, I said. Tell people we mutually decided not to get married. And the money? My $70,000 stays with me. Your $3,000 is still in the account. That won't cover cancellation fees. Ask your father, I said, meeting his eyes. He builds things. I walked away. This time he didn't follow. I thought the hardest part would be walking away. I was wrong. The hardest part was staying steady while everyone else tried to rewrite the story. Friday morning, my phone rang before I'd even finished my coffee. Daniel's father. I stared at the screen for a full 10 seconds before answering. Not because I was afraid, but because I wanted to be deliberate. Hello, Grant. You're making a mistake, he said immediately. No greeting, no preamble, just judgment, delivered like a verdict. That's one opinion, I replied. My son loves you, he continued. You don't throw away 4 years over one comment. It wasn't one comment, I said evenly. It was a pattern. He scoffed. So he thinks you should be more ambitious. So what? That's what partners do. They push each other. There's a difference between encouragement and disrespect, I said. Daniel told me I wasn't enough. You're being sensitive. I smiled to myself, the word again. Sensitive is crying, I said. This is clarity. You took money that wasn't yours. I took back money I earned, I corrected. There's a difference. You had an agreement. Yes, I said, an agreement to get married. That agreement ended when I found out your son was settling for me. Grant was silent for a moment. Then, you should be grateful. Most men would kill to marry into our family. And there it was. Not love. Status. Daniel doesn't want to marry me, I said calmly. He wants to marry a version of me that doesn't exist. That's ridiculous. Ask him if he's proud of my career, I said. Ask him if he thinks what I've built matters. Another pause. You're giving up, Grant said finally. No, I replied. I'm opting out of being measured for the rest of my life. He exhaled sharply. You're heartless. I'm self-respecting. I hung up before he could respond. By that afternoon, the narrative had spread. Mutual friends started texting. What happened? Daniel says you overreacted. Is it true you took the wedding money and disappeared? I answered the same way every time. We realized we weren't compatible and ended the engagement. I took back the money I contributed. No details. No drama. No emotional justifications. Some people accepted that. Others didn't. Apparently, the version Daniel was telling was much more compelling. That I'd exploded over a harmless comment. That I'd refused to work on things. That I'd been looking for an excuse to leave. That I'd stolen money and vanished. Let them believe it. People who knew me well enough would hear the gaps. People who didn't weren't worth convincing. Saturday morning, I toured apartments. 1-bedroom places. Neutral. Quiet. No shared memories clinging to the walls. I found one 20 minutes from my office. 10th floor. City view. Enough light to feel alive without feeling exposed. I signed the lease that afternoon. Sunday, Daniel texted. Can we meet one more time? No yelling. No drama. Just talk. I stared at the message for a long time. Then I agreed. Not because I thought it would change anything, but because I wanted to leave nothing unsaid. Monday afternoon, 3 o'clock. Neutral ground. That's what Daniel had asked for, like we were negotiating a contract instead of dissecting a relationship that had already bled out. The coffee shop was bright and busy, the kind of place where laptops hummed and conversations stayed safely superficial. No one cried here. No one raised their voice. Everything ugly got swallowed by background noise. Daniel was already seated when I arrived. He stood halfway when he saw me, then sat back down awkwardly, unsure of what I'd allow. I noticed the effort this time. Clean hair, fresh clothes. The version of him meant to signal I'm taking this seriously now. I ordered a black coffee and sat across from him. "Thank you for meeting me," he said quietly. "You asked," I replied. He nodded. "I've been thinking a lot." "So have I." "I know I hurt you," he continued, "and you were right. I have been comparing you to my father." I waited. "I didn't realize how much pressure that put on you," he said. "How unfair it was." I took a sip of coffee. "Okay." He frowned slightly. "That's it? What else is there?" I asked. "You're acknowledging something I already knew." "It should change something," he insisted. "Doesn't it?" "No," I said gently. "Understanding the problem isn't the same as fixing it." He leaned forward. "I can fix it. I'll work on it. Therapy, boundaries with my dad, whatever it takes." I looked at him carefully. "Not for me," I said. "If you do that, do it for yourself, for your next relationship." His face drained of color. "There isn't going to be a next relationship. I want you." "You want who you think I should be," I replied, "not who I am." "That's not fair." "It's honest." He exhaled sharply. "You're telling me 4 years doesn't matter." "I'm telling you it matters," I said. "That's why I'm not dragging this out." Daniel's hands tightened around his coffee cup. "Do you really think I don't respect what you do?" "Yes," I said immediately. He flinched. "Then say it," I continued. "Right now. Say you're proud of my work. Say you believe building software systems is as valuable as building physical structures. Say you respect my career the way you respect your father's." He hesitated. Again. It was almost painful how consistent that hesitation was. "It's different," he said finally. I nodded. "That's not an answer." "It is," he insisted. "It's a different kind of work." "Which you value less," I said calmly. "Because you can't point to it. You can't touch it. You can't drive past it and brag." "That's not what I said." "You didn't have to," I replied. "I can hear it." He stared at the table, jaw tight. "My father's work is tangible." "And mine isn't," I said, "which makes it less impressive to you." He opened his mouth to argue, then stopped. Silence. That silence told the truth more clearly than any confession. "This is why it can't work," I said. "You'll always see me as almost, comfortable, stable, but not enough." "I don't want anyone else," he said desperately. "I know," I said. "You want me, just upgraded." He shook his head. "You're twisting this." "No," I said. "I'm finally refusing to." He reached across the table, stopped himself halfway. "Please don't end this." "I'm not ending anything," I said softly. "I'm acknowledging what's already broken." "What about the wedding?" he asked. "It's canceled." "The money?" "Still mine." His voice sharpened. "You're using it to punish me." "I'm using it to build my future," I said. "A real one." "That money wasn't for that." "It was for a marriage," I replied. "There isn't one." Tears filled his eyes. "You're being cruel." I stood. "I'm being clear," I said. "That just feels cruel after years of me being quiet." I picked up my bag. "I hope you find what you're looking for," I told him honestly. "I really do." "But it's not me," I added, "and it never was." I walked out without looking back. The weeks after the coffee shop felt unreal, like life had quietly reset while everyone pretended it hadn't. I moved out while Daniel was at work. Not because I was afraid of him, but because I didn't want a scene that would muddy what was already clear. I packed my clothes, my books, my office equipment. I left behind the couch we picked together, the dishes his mother liked, the framed engagement photo still sitting on the shelf. That picture felt like a prop now. A version of me that had smiled because she thought love meant endurance. My new apartment was small, 1 bedroom, 10th floor, city-facing windows that caught the light just right in the late afternoon. No shared memories hiding in corners. No echoes of arguments that never quite happened out loud. It was quiet. Mine. The phone calls slowed first. Then the texts. Then the concern disguised as curiosity from mutual friends. Eventually, even the silence settled. I heard through someone else, because that's how these things always travel, that Daniel had started seeing someone new. A woman in commercial real estate. Ran her own firm. Drove a luxury car. Very impressive, the message said, like that explained everything. It did. I felt nothing. No jealousy. No regret. Just confirmation. The $70,000 sat untouched in my account, earning interest. I thought about what to do with it. A condo down payment. An investment portfolio. A donation, just to prove it had never been about the money. In the end, I invested it. Quietly. Deliberately. Like everything else I'd built. I went on a few dates. Nothing dramatic, nothing forced. On one second date, a man asked me what I did for work. "I'm a software architect," I said, waiting for the usual follow-up. Instead, he smiled and said, "That's cool. What kind of systems do you build?" No comparison. No dismissal. Just curiosity. We're seeing each other again next week. I don't miss Daniel. I miss the version of our relationship that existed before the comparisons became audible. But that version was probably fiction. He'd been measuring me against his father long before he said it out loud. The cake tasting wasn't the problem. It was the confession. The confirmation code on the mirror wasn't anger. It was self-respect. Daniel called it theft. His father called it weakness. They were wrong. It was clarity. Because the truth is, I did build something. I built a career, a life, a future that didn't require me to audition for approval. Buildings are static. Once they're done, they don't change. Software evolves. It adapts. It grows. And so do I. The wedding fund became the freedom fund. The engagement became a lesson. And the future is mine to build, without anyone standing behind me wishing I was someone else.